I it's like when you if you're going to evangelize, for me, it never sat right with me that I couldn't tell people, okay, if you're going to become a Christian, here's what you should do. I beyond the Romans road, I felt like I didn't really have a roadmap for people, and I didn't feel like I could trust that if successfully evangelized someone, that they would have all the next steps they needed, because Protestant churches don't really bind you to any kind of rule of life. And this is kind of what I was trying to get at with the article, is that John Mark Comer is coming up with a rule of life that he wants people to get into. And Dallas Willard, the spirit of the disciplines, he suggests this rule of life. He suggests these disciplines, but there's not church attendance isn't mandatory on Sundays. You can really skate by with easy beliefism, um, if you want to. And I don't know that there's like a hard line drawn that if you don't go to church, you're not really saved. The definition of are you really saved or are you really in friendship with God just seems very kind of nebulous and undefined. And I found that hard because I couldn't really give good advice as an evangelist. I couldn't even counsel people uh, properly in my small group. Like, I don't know. That was some of the tension I found. And with Catholicism, I've it's very black and white. It's very laid out. I know the moral teachings. I know the obligations we have as Catholics. Um, I really needed that. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you just articulated a big reason why there is a lot of movement towards orthodoxy and Catholicism and not sort of this I think this Protestant formula, I think for a lot of people looks too easy to be believed.
Yeah,
And for that reason, the rigor of Catholicism and Orthodoxy, even though Protestants have their own rigor in other ways,
for sure.
but
Yeah.
the rigor of of Catholicism and Orthodoxy is is attractive and gives people some grit. And I see this too in some Protestant settings where, I mean, I'm old enough to remember when Protestants expressed grit too. I mean, and this was very true in the Christian Reformed Church because if you might miss a Sunday, maybe it was sick, you miss two Sundays, and you might get if there's telephones, you might get a phone call from the elders, and we've noticed that you haven't, taken advantage of the means of grace being the preaching of the word. Oh, Pastor, I'm continuing to be sick. Okay, no problem. Or elder. But and in many Protestant churches, there is a lot of checking up, a lot of
Mm.
policing, a lot of enforcement. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of that went out in the 70s,
Hmm.
for a lot of these, I think a lot of implicit universalism
Hmm.
or implicit moralistic therapeutic deism, where there's sort of a community standard out there of what's good and what's bad.
Yeah.
And maybe you get a certain number of stumbles and demerits, but if you're married three times and cheat on all three wives, odds are good. I don't know if you're going to make the cut. So
Yeah.
maybe you should just have as good a time as possible, before you actually worry about and meeting Judgment Day. But it's also the case that, D. James Kennedy was a Presbyterian minister, Coral Ridge, Florida, and he developed a Protestant evangelist tool called Evangelism Explosion. And this was you would go door to door and you would ask the question, if you were to die tonight, what would you say to have Christ let you into his heaven? And this was a very popular evangelistic tool 20, 30 years ago. I think if you knocked on doors and posed that question to people today, number one, people just they don't believe. Basically, my take on perdition is sort of similar to where Donald Trump is, in that good people go to heaven, bad people maybe go someplace else or disappear, in annihilationism. Um, and the difference between good and bad tends to be, Hitler, Stalin, Mao, Idi Amin, Jim Jones, people who did really bad things. Yeah, they're going to be really in trouble. And my neighbor with that barking dog, I've told that, shut that dog up. Him too.
Yeah.
But you gotta do something like you have to be a killer or a murderer. And then they've got this whole group of gray areas like my aunt had an abortion. Is where does that and so you have, and this is just sort of how people do this. And I think, like you said, having a very well laid out list of requirements says to people, well, it's clear. I need to get to mass. I need to get to confession. There's observances, and the project is very clear. And I
Mhm.
think that's very attractive to people. Whereas, well, I got saved in this one church, and then I felt a little bad. So I got saved in this other church over there too. Both of them baptized me. And then I went to this other church, and I really liked the pastor. He said I didn't really need to be baptized, but I'm not so sure he's right. And I keep kind of asking him, okay, so you say I don't need to be rebaptized again, but I did a lot of bad things between church 2 and 3. And so could you maybe baptize me again just to be sure?
Yeah.
And then I went on this little trip to Israel, and they were like, I could get baptized in the Jordan River. And I think, well, I got baptized with that Sacramento water, and he only like put some on my head. It would really be more powerful if I went and got baptized in the Jordan River, because that's, where John the Baptist did it and Jesus' disciples did it. So Jordan's going to have some real water. And I think a church that just has a much more fleshed out system appeals to people.
Yeah. No, I think that's absolutely true. I think Shia LaBeouf, he, famously converted to Catholicism, and he said, as an actor, I have a call sheet, and it tells me where I need to be and when, and that's what the Catholic Church gives me, and so that is a big part of it. I think to your point about the pastors, though, you're talking about a scenario where someone goes from church to church and they're told different things by different pastors. I think the other thing that the Catholic Church has going for it in terms of its claims, whether you believe this or not, is the claim to apostolic succession. Same with the Orthodox, that we are handing on the faith that was passed down by the laying on of hands to these bishops and priests, and so that we actually have this ministry that only we can do. And so there's a sense in which the claims to bind and loose, the claims to when the Paul talks about submitting to your elders, for they keep watch over your souls. Some of those verses, it's like, oh, okay, so these are the elders that I need to uh, put over my souls, not just Pastor Jim that I choose because I like his church.
Right.
And for me, that was definitely another big part of it. Was I not only does is the expectations clear, but the fact that these are the expectations I'm supposed to follow seems clear to me as well.
Yeah.
And that's where I guess the rest of Christianity just kind of felt like a bit of a choose your own adventure,
Yeah. Yeah.
it, for me.